Welcome to the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investing Show, where I interview the nation's top real estate entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and other amazing entrepreneurs to help educate and inspire you to take your business and your life to the next level. My goal is to add tremendous value to you during every single episode of this show. If you get value, I'd love it if you subscribe on your favorite podcast player, subscribe on YouTube, and my very favorite, please share this with your community so we can impact even more entrepreneurs. Let's start today's show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Today I'm here with Zach Lemaster, and we're going to be talking about how to build wealth through rental properties, how to build up that passive income portfolio. And so Zach does a lot of volume. He's a turnkey provider for a lot of other folks. And so Zach, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, well, first, Mike, thanks for having me on. I think I've been on one or multiple of your email lists for over a decade now, so it's cool to see things come full circle and be able to jump on here with you.
Yeah. How many emails do you think you've gotten from us in a decade?
I don't know if I can even count, but there's always been
most people can't count that high. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some value in there though. So I haven't unsubscribed. So.
That's good. That's good. Well, you wouldn't be here if you did, so I appreciate that.
There you go. So as we were talking before, I have a background in healthcare. My wife and I are both optometrists by education. I was on Air Force scholarship to pay for part of school, so I joined the Air Force as a commissioned captain and practiced optometry in the Air Force for about 7 years, and then transitioned out of that, and we opened up private practices and moved out to Colorado. But as I was mentioning to you, Mike, beforehand, I started investing in real estate. Really the first paycheck I got went to buying my own house, which is a duplex. This is probably 16 or 17 years ago at this point. So the very first house I bought was a duplex. I actually used a VA loan, so I had to put very little money down, rented out half, lived in the other half, lived for free, bought an investment that had tax benefits and appreciated over time, and that just kind of clicked for me. And so I decided that I wanted to continue investing in real estate. So the next year bought a couple single family rentals, and the next year bought more and more. And since then, I always tell people I bought real estate every single year. I haven't made money on all deals, but I've stayed consistent. And I think that's a key that's really allowed me to grow my portfolio. But there was this pivotal moment where my wife and I started to be more strategic around where we invested, focusing on the markets that offer the best returns, the growth markets, areas that were conducive with our goals. Obviously, in the military, you're moving around every 2 to 4 years, so you can't be too hyper-focused on one local area. But that allowed us to open our eyes to investing in the areas that had the best returns, that were from a distance. And of course, there was a lot of work to build our teams and systems in those areas to build a successful portfolio. But that eventually allowed us to step away from our active career path as docs and be full-time real estate investors. And now we're doing the same thing for other people, helping investors do the same thing through our rent-to-retirement turnkey business. So that's about as quick of a story as I can give you. Yeah.
That's awesome. So as a doctor, like, you've spent all this time to get that degree, and there's plenty of people in the world that are not doing what they went to school for. So nothing wrong with that. But at what point did you realize, like, I want to supplement my income and kind of build up some long-term wealth to, like, okay, I don't want to do, the main thing isn't going to be the main thing anymore. Like, I want my side hustle to become the main thing. Like, at what point did you realize that, or was that a plan from the beginning?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and something that still comes up quite a bit today with some of our colleagues and friends and family. But that was never the plan for me when investing in real estate. I was always someone that just hustled, and I wanted to be smart with my money and invest. And I like the idea of real estate because it's tangible. I understood the math, and like once I really understood how real estate operated. With all the ways you generate wealth using leverage and tax benefits and all the things like that, it was very clear that was a scalable method. But that was never the goal for me to replace my income. It was more just a side product or the byproduct of just staying consistent to continually build a portfolio, right? And just to further educate myself. And then, there's some people that, when I first stepped away from optometry, because we replaced our active income in probably years 6 to 7 of like consistently investing through our rental portfolios. And there was a lot of people that would say like, hey, I'm glad that you found like your passion, or like you realized that optometry wasn't right for you. And I always correct those people because I was like, that's not the case at all. I'm very passionate. Even today, as we were talking about, we do a lot of humanitarian missions, but like I'm very passionate about helping people see. That's really important to me. But real estate just provided an opportunity for us not to be reliant on that as income. And now we do, worldwide stuff and have a bigger impact on people. So I guess it wasn't ever the goal. but it was an opportunity that happened just from staying consistent to investing strategically over time.
What's the traditional path for an optometrist to grow? Is it to have like locations and have multiple doctors kind of under you, or what does that path look like? And the reason I ask is I have a friend that's a surgeon, but like he's the guy, and so even though it's a high paying job, it's like if he can't work or something happened to his hand, I mean he'd be in trouble, right? It's not like I guess he is, there's ways to probably scale that too, but he can't scale his own time, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, your time and chair, right?
Yeah.
Is your time, especially with a profession like that. Like if you're the specialty, the more specialized you get, the more required of you to, and your income is capped. So I would say for optometry, really any other healthcare profession, I mean, yes, you can go the business direction where you are owning multiple businesses and hiring other docs. But one thing I found though is there's a lot of really great doctors and practitioners that are not good business owners and operators.
Yeah.
And also on the real estate side, we see a lot of people that are very good at flipping or wholesaling houses, but they're actually terrible investors, which is strange to me, right? About like, I think when people think about real estate investing, a lot of what drives people, I think you would agree to me, Mike, but I'm curious to hear what you have to say. But a lot of people, I think, have the idea of like, I'm investing in real estate to have some level of control over my financial picture, to diversify my portfolio. But a lot of them are like, I want to buy my time back, right? I want to have financial independence, whether that's retiring a spouse, working part-time, whatever the case is. And so it's just like entering into that mindset from the get-go. And it's hard to do in, I think, a lot of other businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So let's talk about that kind of transition. And I think everybody's goals are different, right? But most people want more. They want more. Real estate could be an insurance policy where they have another stream of income, or maybe it's going to be the thing at some point, or maybe it's like, hey, I don't have enough to, my retirement plan I'm on right now isn't going to get it done, so I need to start supplementing it. I mean, there's a lot of things there, but talk about that transition from kind of active income, whether you're at, I guess, different stages in your career, to generating more passive kind of income, which you're obviously doing through real estate.
Yeah, when I think about passive income and just wealth in general, and again, this was not intentional for me out of the gates. I didn't have this plan to be where I'm at today. It just developed over like having smaller goals, reaching those and looking at the bigger goal. But my first kind of initial goal was, hey, maybe this is scalable where I can cover a lot of my living expenses. I mean, technically I did that with my first rental. Like the majority of my biggest living expense I had was housing, and doing like a house hack in a duplex, I was able to cover that. But kind of that first goal within the handful of rentals we got within one to 2 years was just like, let's cover $3,000 or $4,000 of passive income through our rental properties. That in cash flow, $3,000 or $4,000 in cash flow that's covering on a monthly basis, that's covering my expenses. And then once we kind of had an idea of how to achieve that, it was like, all right, well, how do we scale that up and cover our active income, which we did between 5 to 6 years investing. And then from there, it's like increasing your income where it's well beyond what you would have been able to achieve in that profession, and creating like generational wealth. But that's not, I was really focused, Mike, on cash flow immediately, because I think that's more tangible. And a lot of newer investors, I think, are very hyper focused on like, all right, if I have X amount of doors and X amount of dollars every month, like I'm free or whatever. But what I soon realized is that wealth really compounds and is scalable in real estate through all the other ways you grow wealth in real estate, right? Yep. Just maximizing the tax benefits in real estate. Like we run a very successful business today, and our goal is to buy enough real estate to reduce our taxability to zero if possible, and that just gives us more money to invest. And then just using leverage strategically and letting real estate do what it does over time, and then going through sales and 1031 exchanges and scaling up. So like as we saw the kind of that trajectory over time, we just continued to do that. But it took me a long time to actually step away from optometry completely. I remember I was 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, 2 days, and I was like 1 day a week, and then I'm going like, why am I even doing this? You know what I mean? Because my head is somewhere else. But then eventually just moved into the volunteer basis and focused on the real estate.
Yep. So let's talk about this idea of kind of investing. When I came up, like it wasn't nearly as common as it is today to invest outside of your own market. And I think that's because this like software and management tracking tools and like all that stuff has changed a lot. It's certainly in the past like 10 or 12 years for sure. but now it's obviously very common, and you practice it and you preach it, is investing in other markets because let's face it, there's a lot of people that can't really buy rentals where they live because they maybe don't cash flow, or there's a lot of reasons why. If you're certainly on the coast, it's a little bit harder to make those cash flow. But let's talk about this, just the general idea of being open to investing in other markets that are not where you live.
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say is that, let me start with this, that when I was learning real estate, and I'm always learning, real estate's a lifelong journey, but when I was first kind of trying to decide on our strategy and like what the next step was, I really surrounded myself with a lot of people that were highly successful in real estate, and I still do today. I think part of like this, running these podcasts, is we get to pick people's brains, right, in different industries and be exposed to different things to help kind of shape our own plan and strategy. But it was clear to me that the people that were very successful in real estate owned a portfolio that was across multiple markets. Not a single person I talked to was like, oh, I'm in one market, one asset class, and this has just been the golden ticket. It's about diversity, because real estate's dynamic. It's always changing, right? You don't want to be hyper-focused. Like, diversification is key in any investing that you do. But being strategic around where you were investing really is the key piece. Like, that's kind of a pivotal moment that allowed us to change the trajectory of our investing career path. It was a foundation of this business. But what we early found out is like, hey, our local market, while we've been successful there, and we did start there within the first 2 to 3 years, we focused on our local market. But again, the military, you're moving around. So like, you can't be that attached to that area. But really, we found that investing more strategically, because there's a lot of different markets in the U.S. There's many different markets that have better appreciation, that have more affordability, probably have better cash flow numbers, have better growth trajectory, have a larger undersupply of housing, have more favorable laws and tax structures. That can really help you excel your investing. And to your point, I think there's a lot of people that they want to be, they're hyper focused on maybe starting in their local market because that's what they feel comfortable with. But I truly believe that's a limiting factor, because I think it's highly likely for every single person listening to this that your local market is probably, while it feels comfortable, maybe it's probably not the most strategic market based on your specific goals. Like, there's a high likelihood there's a better market out there. But the challenge is how do you even find that market? How do you research it? How do you build the teams and the systems in those areas? Like, it's just concerning. It's daunting, right? How do you know if the property is performing well if you can't drive by and see it? But those are all limiting beliefs that I had the same thing. But I can tell you that, focusing on finding the market first that fits your goals, where the opportunity is, and building a team around that has been a huge piece of our success over time, and we continue to do that.
Yeah, that's great. And it really does limit you to just choose one market too. I'll share a couple of interesting things here. So I have a rental portfolio in the Dallas area, DFW area. And I haven't been to most of the houses that I've purchased in some instances, 10, 12 years. I've never even been back. And I don't want to go back because I don't like, I know I'm going to see a car parked in the front yard, or like, why didn't they cut those bushes? Or I don't need any more problems in my life. So I will go out of my way. I might be in the vicinity of one. And I remember one time my wife was like, we should go drive by. And I was like, no way. I didn't even want to know. And so there's one house last year we had a almost a total loss kind of fire at. And I was like, well, let me go check it out and take a look at it. But once, if you're not even going there, and if you don't want to go there, then if you have somebody else managing them, I'd almost rather have them be somewhere else. Because it's just it's not like if I'm buying stocks, I'm like, well, I only buy stocks that are headquartered in the Dallas market. It's like, so wait a minute, this is an asset that I'm investing in. As long as somebody's managing it and they're doing a good job, I don't need to go look at it. That's their job, right?
Yeah, and I would argue that that's not the best utilization of your time. To your point, I think it's just a distraction because,
right.
Of course, we set up, part of what we do is setting up established management teams in these areas where they can handle management, so you don't have to build your own team in those areas. But that's kind of the goal. The idea of investing is not to, it's not scalable to be self-managing all your properties locally or otherwise.
Yeah.
To drive by them all the time. Your focus should be on the highest return on your time.
Yeah.
And your time is likely better utilized building and scaling your business, or trying to actually apply what real estate investing does for you and actually use your time how you want, right?
Right.
So
yeah.
That's the business idea around investing in real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. So at what point did you say, hey, we're doing this for ourselves? And how did it How did that transition into like, hey, we're going to do this as a service for other people as well?
It's very early on. This is probably about 10 to 12 years ago at this point. But, when we first started investing out of state, and just talking about what we were doing, of course, we had a lot of the naysayers of people like, oh, what are you doing? Like, why are you buying a property across the country? Or why would you buy a property in this area in Florida? Hurricanes are going to, isn't that scary? And, even though they had no idea that the property was inland and, right, insurance, all the things. But, and yet that property is like 5x'd in value, but over the past decade. But we had a lot of people that were also like, hey, we see the success you're having in real estate. We don't have the time, the energy, the knowledge. Like, can you help us? Can we invest with you? Can you guide us on what we've done? A lot of these were friends and family or optometry colleagues early on. And so we did. We helped them follow the same process. And then we realized like, hey, there's probably a larger need for this outside of just our local network. And then we started making it as we developed our systems and teams to be able to scale, because we're still actively investing, right? But we can't own hundreds of doors in all these areas, nor do we want to. But we have a process to follow, and we can scale that for other people. And so that was kind of the development of rent retirement.
Yeah. So when I was kind of coming up, there were turnkey providers, and we talked about this a little bit. It was usually folks that would, buy the deal wholesale and fix it up, and then put a tenant in it, and then rent it out and find a buyer to come like take that over, right? And that's evolved a lot to where I know you're obviously doing some even build to rent now, and you're doing stuff with builders. But first, before we kind of get into that, can you just talk about the concept of a turnkey provider, which is in many ways the easy button for busy professionals that want to get into rentals, that don't want to go buy from a wholesaler or manage a rehab, do all that themselves, because that is, far from passive. But just talk about the turnkey model and what that means.
Absolutely, Mike. And I think what you just outlined is kind of the traditional historic view of like what turnkey is, but it is one of these buzzwords that people use quite commonly, and it's a large spectrum of like what turnkey actually is. So just be conscious of like who's using the term and what they define as turnkey. But traditionally, you're right. I mean, when you think about turnkey, a lot of it is like Midwestern houses, sometimes in lower class neighborhoods, not always, but that's kind of your traditional 1930s, 50s house, whatever, that's been renovated, leased and managed, where the whole idea is that you as the investor, regardless of where you are located, regardless of your time involvement, regardless of your experience level, like you can buy one of these assets where you have a team managing it. It will potentially be more passive. I will never say completely passive, because I don't think real estate ever is, but it's more on the to your point, it's more on the passive end of the spectrum. But the risk in that scenario is you're highly reliant on the team that you're working with for your success. And so you still need to do your research about the location, the team. We've really, and we still have some of those type of assets, but really what our business focuses on more is new construction. That's over 80% of what we do. I mean, we're focusing on really growth areas. A lot of these are the southeastern markets. We work across 18 different markets in the U.S., mainly Midwest, and strong focus on the southeast. These are areas where there's an undersupply of housing. We focus on B and A class areas in new construction assets where you don't have the maintenance that could wipe out an entire year of cash flow, right? And one tenant turn or something like that. You attract better quality tenants. You have better appreciation. You have better financing options. There's some lenders out there, that credit unions, that will do as little as 5% down on multiple investment properties on new construction single family assets. But that's location specific. So we really like the new construction model because it's just more predictable. I think it's a better long-term investment. It's more sustainable, and you have better upside. Even though the downside would be that the new construction, it's sometimes more expensive than, say, that 1950s house in the Midwest. So those are some of the things that we tend to focus on with the new construction and why we like it.
Yep. And you're doing something interesting that when we were talking is, because I know other turnkey providers, and they would go buy deals, or they would maybe build to rent or partner with somebody that's kind of doing the build to rent model. But you're able to buy deals in bulk from builders, which is interesting. So tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that is very unique to us. And in fact, we're the only company we've been pioneers in this space. And I know that because we've had to build the groundwork out with these builders. But really on the new construction, our business operates in two ways, Mike. One, we are builders ourselves, and we do build inventory. That's a small portion of the inventory that we sell through our marketplace, though, just because we do, hundreds and thousands of transactions with our investors, helping them grow their portfolio. And so what we've done is we've also partnered with national, regional, and national and regional builders, some that many people are familiar with, like Toll Brothers, Lennar, Century, LGI, DR Horton. These are builders that build nationwide. And so we've been able to specifically look at the markets where the investment returns make the most sense, and then acquire those properties in bulk and wholesale type of pricing, just like an institutional buyer would, like Blackstone or any of these private equity firms or REIT. The same thing. These builders have wholesale divisions where they're selling in bulk to institutional type of buyers. And so what our business does is we take the institutional type of buying opportunity and pass that on to the individual investor, where you would not, as the individual investor, whether you're buying 1 or 10 or even 20 houses from one of these builders, you would not get the same type of discounts as you would with someone that buying, being part of our community is buying hundreds and thousands of houses over time. And so that's significant. That's anywhere between, I don't know, sometimes as high as like 12 to 18% of the home, where you can get a price reduction in the value, or you can actually get that same percentages cash back at closing, where that can cover part or all of your down payment. And so these are some of the unique ways that we're able to, because of economies of scale, because of volume, allow investors to be strategic in their acquisition and also make a very unique business model in the space. And it works out for the builder because they're all about moving inventory, and doing it at scale.
Yep. Yeah, a lot. I'm sure you do some of this, but a lot of builders, like they like to sell the first 10 or 20% of their houses, or their last 10 or 20%. I mean, they like to have these kind of closeouts and move on to the next thing, right? So they like the guarantee, even if it's less money, but they just like to kind of get the project started and have some money coming in quickly, or just like, hey, let's close it out and move on to the next one, right?
Yeah, and we'll commit to them before the houses are done. When our investors buy them, they're like completed houses. Many of them are already leased at closing. But to your point, construction debt is expensive right now, and there's a lot of people where if they had a 2 or 3 year loan and that's coming full cycle or whatever, like the builders want it off their books. They want commitments, and it's all about moving inventory. So it kind of makes a win-win scenario for everyone and allows the individual investor access to markets and inventory they wouldn't have access to otherwise.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit, where do you think the market is headed? I mean, obviously, on the rental side specifically, interest rates have played a big role in, I guess, how well properties cash flow. There's some, it'd be interesting to kind of know your thoughts on where you think the market is headed over the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really want to preface this, Mike, with saying, like, this is, I think, very important to be hyper-focused on different markets, because I don't like making general statements for the housing market as a whole, because I truly believe that today it's so unique to the market that you're in. I mean, we have many markets that have seen double-digit appreciation in both home prices and rents every single year just from supply constraints. It's just that's the number one thing, like supply and demand, right? So being in those type of growth markets is important in any market cycle. But if we're thinking, I guess let me start general first. Then is that I think overall we've obviously been in a period of time where, I mean, in mid 2022 we had the highest increase in interest rates we've seen over the past 4 decades, as far as like how aggressive the rates were increased out of necessity, really. And a lot of people were calling for market crashes and things like that didn't really happen. In fact, the market really kind of stagnated generally as a whole. Again, there were pockets within the country where markets did quite well. And so interest rates stayed elevated. They're still elevated today, and they stayed elevated longer than we really anticipated. But I think we're actually in a transition period right now. And I'm, again, speaking generalities, but regardless of if interest rates go down or not, we are moving back into more of a seller's market at this point. Yeah, I think part of this is, and you got to look at the retail. A lot of what stats are around like retail settings, right? And that's a lot of the public stats we hear. So when you look at the investor markets as a subhole to that, it kind of gives you an idea of what investors are doing, both on an institutional level, which drives the biggest volume, but also the individual investors. We're seeing a lot of investors enter the market. I think if we have some of the tax incentives that will be extended or come back into play, which I think is very likely this year, that will drive a lot more investors back into the market. But even on the retail side, which is the majority of the real estate market and buyers, we're seeing a lot more buyers enter the market. We still have the inventory constraint that we do, especially some of the markets that we're operating in the Southeast. Like, there's a huge constraint, and builders have slowed down as well because of the uncertainty in the retail market and the slower days on market is longer in a lot of these areas. So all this being said, I think that now is really a unique buying opportunity where you can still, as an investor, make some unique purchases where home prices haven't gone through crazy appreciation. But I do think this is the beginning of a slow transition back over to a little bit of a seller's market in many markets that we operate in, where there'll be more competition. You'll be on the front end of that appreciation wave. We're already seeing rents become significantly more competitive over time. A large part more when you can't buy a house, you're a renter. So there's also that piece of it. So I don't know if I just rambled on for 5 minutes.
No, I know that there's no way to predict where we're going, but I think I think that change is in the air, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Certainly, even over the next few months, let alone few years. But I think at the end of the day, the real estate market is going to continue to be strong for a long time. It's just a matter of, are you working with people to avoid making the mistakes that you might make on your own? Those are that's the most expensive part of this business, kind of quote business, if you will, is making mistakes, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that comes in all shapes and sizes. But if you go back to the fundamentals of real estate, and I really want to get this point clear with the audience, Mike, is that this is something that's become abundantly clear to me, because I bought real estate every single year, regardless of market cycle, regardless of interest rates, because I've realized and I've seen the benefits, the other side of it, where, regardless of what's going on in the market, if you're buying in a good location with good teams and you've kind of been focusing on the fundamentals of real estate, which is where your properties are positive cash flow and they meet all these fundamentals, right, where it's going to be a good long-term investment, it doesn't really matter what's happening at that current time, because over time, time is your friend when you own real estate,
right?
Because all these things are compounding, right? We talked earlier about, we call real estate the ideal investment, and I think your audience gets this, but this is all the ways you build wealth in real estate. It's an acronym. I is income, that's your cash flow. Again, the newer investor tends to be focused on that, but all the other ways are really where you build true wealth, right? D is your depreciation and tax benefits. E is your equity buildup, for example, as the tenant's paying the loan down for you over time. Of course, A is appreciation, which regardless of short-term fluctuations, all real estate goes up over time. And then L is leverage. There's some unique loan options, like we talked about the 5% down option we work with investors on. And there's no PMI on that. That's a true investor, a 30-year investor loan. You can use unique things like that to really be a strategic investor right now that you may not have access to. But the point is that over time, you are compounding your wealth through all these things working over time, regardless of what the market does. That loan is being paid down on the amortization scale every single month. And, your cash flow over time should go up. Houses are appreciated. Even with small moves, the more real estate you can own over a longer period of time, you're guaranteed to build wealth. And if you can just keep that in mind, this is a guaranteed path to success and to wealth, is just staying consistent. But you got to invest, and you got to consistently invest over time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Zach, thanks for spending some time with us today.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Mike. I've been a big fan and supporter of yours for a long time. And like I said, this is neat to come full circle here. I
appreciate that, man. Yeah, that's awesome. If folks want to connect with you or learn how to work with you, where can they go?
We always want to drive people to our website, Mike. We have a lot of information just about market data and different markets we're focusing on, and loan options and things like that. We put a lot of information. Our website is renttoretirement.com. That's renttoretirement.com. If you were listening to this audio, you can also text REI to 33777 and just get access to our inventory, set up a time with our team. Be happy to share as much information as possible. And if you're interested in turnkey investing and build to rent, we'd be happy to discuss that too.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll share a link down below in the show notes here. So, Zach, thanks again for sharing some time with us today.
Yeah, pleasure's all mine. Thanks, Mike.
Everybody, hope you got some good insights from today. There's no better way to build wealth than real estate. And so it's just a matter of, if you're working with the right people, they can help keep you on track, help keep you, relatively speaking, as safe as possible, help you climb the learning curve faster so you don't make as many mistakes as you probably would otherwise. But hope you got some good value, and we'll see you on the next show. Thanks for joining us for today's show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing on your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. You can also check out the show's notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and even how to work with me directly one-on-one. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. See you on the next show.